Hi everyone and welcome to a brand new episode of Pitstop Fracas. I am your host Anik and we are here today to go over the Michael Schumacher documentary that was premiered on Netflix this week. So we're talking about Michael Schumacher, what many people consider to be the greatest F1 driver of all time. And I'm here joined by Chris, Kwame and JL to go through that documentary so we'll get their thoughts on it. It was an interesting documentary, in all honesty. I personally think it touched on Schumacher as a person and not so much as a racing driver, but we'll get into that as the pod goes along. Let me introduce my co-host today. Chris, how you keeping, mate?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm good, man. Thanks for asking. Actually, no, I'm okay. I've been suffering from this sore throat over the weekend, and it's still getting the better of me, unfortunately. But I should be okay to get through it today. We're talking F1, so I'm sure I'll be fine, bro. Yeah, Kwame, how you doing, mate?
I'm good, bro. How you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm good.
That's good to hear, man. Yeah.
The sore throat's still there from when Chris asked me to when you asked me. The sore throat's still there. It's not gone yet, bro.
Yeah, bro. Hopefully it gets better by the end of the pod. But yeah.
Fingers crossed, man.
Not too bad. Really, I mean, good to see the documentary as well. I mean, I definitely do agree with Anik that it did touch him more as a person rather than his F1 adventures. But we'll go into that later.
Yeah, definitely. I suppose on that point though, it just goes to show that as drivers, they're not robots; they're humans as well. And I think it was nice, especially to separate, the 2-week break we have between races, for them to release this documentary and provide like a different angle when it comes to Formula One and racing drivers and what goes on behind the scenes. JL, how you doing, brother?
Man, like you, recovering from cough, flu, whatever it is. But I'm good. I went down memory lane today, like
You went down
rewatching
memory
that.
lane, yeah?
Honestly, brought back so many memories.
To be honest with you, bro, as a United fan, we're talking about one GOAT here, but since the last time you're on the pod, another GOAT of football has joined your team. So, are you sure you're recovering from a cough, or was it just a lot of heavy nights partying? Is that what it was, JL?
No. It definitely was. But ironically, both my teams in red. I have to relive both the pain and the joy. So we're good.
We're good. And Kunle has just joined the building. Kunle, you never responded to the roll call, but you just joined the stream as you would. Anyway, we love having you on. How's it going, bro?
Yeah, I'm good. I didn't know I would be done with work by the time you guys were recording. That's why I didn't. Because some of us have to work,
Mate, we've all been working. Don't give me that. You just jump in the stream and surprise us.
I mean, some of us are on a different time zone. You get me?
You're not sporting the red do-rag today, or any do-rag.
Nah, because shout out them, man. But nah, never supporting that team ever. Ever.
Oh, good.
I'm too
Anyway.
McLaren for that.
Now you're McLaren. This is what I don't get. All of a sudden.
No.
All of a sudden.
I've always been McLaren, Anik. You just didn't know. I've always been McLaren.
Bro, since Monza, all these McLaren fans have come out of nowhere. Like,
Anik,
I was back in McLaren for time.
Anik, go check the predictions. I had McLaren finishing third. I've always been McLaren.
Yeah, but were you a McLaren fan though? I'm gonna have to go back and watch these earlier pods.
Go watch it. I've always been. It's always been,
All right.
That's always been the first team. Lewis left. There's still a lot for McLaren, but I took my support to go with Lewis.
Sorry. This is a Ferrari, like a Schumacher pod. We're talking about McLaren. Forget that.
Yeah.
It's not about them.
But I'm sure the team that's not won a world championship in almost 12 years or 15 years.
Doesn't matter.
Hey, McLaren haven't won a world constructors in the 21st century, but we'll save that for another day and another pod. Let's talk about Schumacher though. In terms of the actual documentary itself, so it's 2 hours. And for those viewers and listeners that are unaware, the documentary itself was touching on Schumacher up until his battles with McLaren and his first championships for a good 1.5 hours. And then for like the last 20-25 minutes, they sort of just skimmed over his his 5 world championships with Ferrari and then his later years. But what we saw in the early exchanges was this, what do you call it, like a real desire to be a race winner from an early age. It seems like his upbringing had a lot of similarities to Lewis Hamilton in terms of wanting to be the best in karting, not always having the best kart, coming up from, a working class family and sort of rising up through the ranks there. Now, I'm going to come to you first on this, JL. His first race was at Belgium in 1991. And correct me if I'm wrong, I think he managed to qualify, I think, 7th on the grid or something.
Yeah, between 5th and 7th, it wasn't that high.
Yeah, I think it was in 1990. I think it was 91.
Yeah, 91.
And it got a lot of the paddock to stand up and see, actually, you know what, this guy is a fantastic racing driver.
Mm-hmm.
And then it just seemed like he was tapped up all of a sudden by like Flavio Briatore. What did you make of that all of a sudden? Like, obviously Eddie Jordan brought him in. He goes, yeah, we're gonna have you race for us. And then all of a sudden he got tapped up, and by 92 he was driving for Benetton. What did you make of those sort of early exchanges? And does it like make you realise that these games are always going to be played in Formula One?
100%. I think someone made a point in the documentary around how the golden rule is you don't speak to drivers in the paddock about deals and moving teams. Yet in the 21st century, we see it all the time. So this is part and parcel of Formula One. It happened daily. It's funny watching like how as I said, he got into F1 as a lucky because someone was unavailable. Mm-hmm. But it's interesting because I believe a few pods ago we spoke about how we want to see drivers. It's rare to now see drivers whose families sacrificed a lot to get them into the sport. And we talk about Lewis and what his dad did, but Michael's the same. His dad and his family had to sacrifice a lot. He came in, and I guess, as his dad said, when someone offers you a 5-year deal, I think it was like 3,000 marks, where it was a month, you take it. It doesn't matter what the team was, didn't matter where they were. I think Benetton at the time were the equivalent of modern day.
I think he said they were like the 4th quickest team.
Yeah, 4th quickest team. So I would say
You'd take like a McLaren, ironically.
Ironically, McLaren, yes.
McLaren, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. McLaren without the heritage. So I can now, same with like any driver on the grid, right? If you were a talented driver and McLaren come to you to say, yo, we want you, here's money on the table, you take it. So, and obviously he won 2 championships, which we'll get to. But yeah, it was at the time unprecedented. And I just remember my first memory of Formula One was that blue car with the red nose. That's like etched into my memory. And just seeing him challenging with Williams and McLaren back then.
Yeah, definitely, bro. And I think that early career, that early part of his Benetton career sort of set him up to go for the World Championships. And I'm just going to jump straight into the sort of first, dramatic moment that we saw in the documentary. And that was like the duels that he had with Ayrton Senna. We saw that at the French Grand Prix in 1992, he took him out at the start. And then, there was the battles right up until, that fatal day in 1994 when Senna unfortunately passed away. Now, when it came to that Senna moment in the documentary, I want to come to you first on this, Kunle. Like, what was your initial reaction to the crash, the battles, the way they portrayed it? Because they turned around in the documentary and they kind of suggested that You know, Senna at the time was under a lot of pressure. Schumacher was chasing him down. That kind of what led to, you know, that moment in time, you know, happening, and you know he could have, and that might be the reason why he crashed. Obviously, there's been a report that's come out and said, yeah, it was due to the steering column failing. But I mean, yeah, what was your take on that Senna bit, mate?
First things first, and rest in peace to Ayrton Senna. You know,
Yeah.
great driver, brilliant driver. You know. Secondly, I think Netflix were disgusting for that. To start with, they could have.
It was raw. It was very, very
been,
raw.
They could have done that. I could think of different ways where they could have put that accident in there, and it wouldn't be as bad as it was the way the documentary came out. Because, you know, for a lot of people, a lot of fans who have done their best to avoid watching that Senna crash. A lot of fans have avoided watching that Senna crash again. You know, if you've seen the Senna documentary, it was in there. But again, you knew that was coming because there was a trigger warning. At least, you know, you sort of had an idea of, okay, this is building up to that crash. But with the Schumacher one, I didn't expect to see that crash. And I didn't expect it to be that raw because, you know, not just the crash, there was the, you know, the whole, the health officials at the racetrack trying to like move his lifeless body away from the car. You know, all of that was in there, and I feel like that could have been done better. And again, it's just like Netflix would do with Drive to Survive. They try to build up something that probably doesn't exist. You know,
I mean, sorry to interrupt you there, Kunle. I want to stick my neck out and say that, in my view, Schumacher had no bearing on the crash itself. The fact that he was chasing Senna down, I don't think he had any bearing on it. And I think the way Netflix tried to portray that, I just didn't sit right with me. Like, he's a world champion. He's driving the car. The steering column gave up. That's exactly what we've just read.
Yeah,
I don't think it had anything to do with Schumacher chasing him down.
There was no. I mean, yes, maybe they sort of, if they were sort of portraying, you know, this could have been a rivalry for the next, from 1994 to probably 2000, 2001, where Senna would be sort of leaving the sport. If that was what they were trying to do, makes sense. But the fact that they tried to, like, yes, you know, Schumacher came into the sport when Senna was like the sort of face. But then even then, Senna wasn't the only face. Like, you know, I wasn't there then, but, you know, I've watched the documentaries, I've seen the different highlights. You know, it was Senna versus Prost. There was other drivers there that were like, not just.
No, I mean, you had heads like Nigel Mansell. You had Martin Brundle, who might not have been well known, but he was an experienced driver. Yeah, you had Mika Hakkinen.
The other guys, they were not scrubs. You know, it's not like where there's just one name to the sport. So there was different drivers there, but I think because Senna was the other driver that was like sort of that determined at the time, or publicly. You know, everyone knew Senna. You know, everyone knew Senna wanted to win championships. Everyone knew he would do anything to win a race. You know, he would do anything in battles. So I think maybe that's what they tried to do, to say, okay, you know what, it's coming. It's ruffled Senna's feathers. And you know, there was that scene where Senna goes to speak to him after the crash. You know, after he crashed into him, like, you know, you don't drive like that, blah blah blah. You know, sort of Lou broed him, like G-checked him, like, yo, big man, you're fast, but calm down a bit. Maybe that's what they were trying to do. But yeah, I wasn't really, and I tweeted it as well, like, you know, if you don't want to watch this between the minutes of this and this, you can skip it, because it was a bit too. I've seen the crash before, but I hadn't seen it from that perspective of, you know, there's a lifeless body in the car. Because you know, like, it was so vivid and it was so raw that you could literally see the car. You could literally see that Senna wasn't moving, and they were just trying to move his body away from that car. And yeah, that was a bit too much.
I think what they should have probably focused on. I mean, I don't want to be criticizing, you know, Netflix and how they go about doing these documentaries, but I think what they probably should have focused on was the aftermath. You know, the fact that on the podium, Schumacher was there. I think someone came up to him. I don't know. You can correct me if I'm wrong. Someone came up to him on the podium and said, "Look, it's in a serious condition for Senna." And
yeah, I think the team principal said no champagne or nothing like
yeah,
that.
and it should have maybe just focused on bits. What I found really weird was like the way they just tidied up the crash and just wanted to get racing again. But yeah, Chris, let me come to you quickly on this. In terms of Senna and the legacy that he left on Schumacher in the documentary, what did you make of that? Chris, if you're there, you're on mute.
So after, yeah, I'm here.
I got you now.
Am I out?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah, go for it, bro.
Okay. So I found that the legacy, the legacy that Senna left for Schumacher was something that was really good and really important, because you could see that he was one of his heroes. One person, like you saw how he G-checked man in France, and how Schumacher actually listened. Like one of the few people that you could say Michael listened to this person when talking about racing. And like, so you can see that the effects of both the crash, seeing the crash, and, you know, losing one of your heroes, that the profound effect in the interview was clear.
So I feel as though on that Senna point, you know, you could see that it was one of his heroes. We saw that in the pictures after Manicor, the way in which Schumacher was taking on the information that the Senna was giving him. Senna was acting like, you know, the old figure, being like, look, you should have done this, and you should have taken this approach into the corner, whatever. It seemed like Schumacher for that one time was like, yeah, I'm willing to take on, I'm willing to learn. And obviously after the crash, you know, it must have, you know, taken him back, and he ended up winning that 94 season. And everyone's going to remember that 94 season for obviously one of the greats passing away in Senna. But he was able to deliver that championship for Benetton, and he was also able to deliver it in 95 as well. But during that time, I think we also need to touch on some of the key racing moments that he had, some of the, you know, quote unquote shithousery moments that he had. And there was an incident with Damon Hill that I want to come to you, Kwame. Obviously it was way before your time, so you didn't witness it live, but you've probably seen it back on YouTube and definitely in a documentary. But what did you kind of make of that? Obviously it's the last race of the 1994 championship. They're in Adelaide. Schumacher seems to be cruising to a victory that will lead him to the World Championship. I think, I don't know the corner itself, but he's going into one of the corners. He mistimed it. He went off track. As he came back on circuit, Hill goes for the inside. As he's going for the inside, Schumacher just appears to turn into him, which leaves Schumacher's car completely wrecked and out of the Grand Prix. Hill tries to carry on, but I think the suspension's broken, and obviously Hill can't carry on. Both drivers are out, which means that Schumacher wins his first world title. So yeah, what did you make of that first sort of incident that Schumacher had to win a title for Benetton?
I feel like it's very interesting because with Schumacher, like one of the legacies he kind of lent on is being his shithousery moments, and like you said, his first moment was the Damon Hill incident in Adelaide, and with that, it shows, I feel like, a guy who's very determined to win at all costs, and would kind of previously, you know, like Senna before him, who had the situation Suzuka with Prost. It kind of shows how Schumi took all possible to win, even if that affected, you know, that could affect his chances of winning, because you're not sure if you're going to crash him out. You're not sure if it's going to work out in your favor. You could crash him and he can still drive on, but luckily for him, he hits Damon in the right part of the car where his suspension was finished. And I remember when Damon went to the pit stop, they realized that, yeah, he can't continue. Schumacher won. And also, I find it's a kind of a current theme in his career as well. 97, again, similar incident with Jacques Villeneuve. Again, I think that was the referee got suspended as well from the championship in last race. We also saw the incident again with Coulthard in Spa as well. and him, beefing, trying punching up and the pit stop. I like the way the documentary talked about it, because even though Schumacher, he may be in the best condition right now to talk about, and also he's definitely a revered guy in the sport, and even though he's a very passionate guy, I kind of liked how it did talk about his flaws as a driver and how he was willing to win at all costs. And if that happened now as well, especially if on tour or just in the PC culture we live in, it'll be much more interesting to see how we're not. But I kind of rate how he just went for anything. He just didn't care. I'm going to take this risk.
And I think you touched on it perfectly, because even I was just going to come on to the 97 incident as well, and I think that bears so many similarities to the 94 one. I think Martin Brundle came on radio and said, "You've hit the wrong part of him there, Shumi. He's been able to carry on." And just for reference for the viewers and listeners, in 1997 it was a very, very similar incident. Very final Grand Prix in Jerez. Schumacher and Villeneuve are battling for the title. Basically, whoever finished first wins the title. If both of them were to crash out, then Schumacher would have won the title. Correct if I'm wrong there. But regardless, Schumacher crashed out as he tried to steer into Villeneuve as he was overtaking him. Now, I'm going to come to you on this, JL. In both incidents, a driver is coming up the inside of him, and it doesn't appear. Schumacher turns into them, tries to take them out for the World Championship. Do you feel as though that is just a natural instinct of his driver, or do you reckon that is him just being an ultimate dickhead and being like, "Hey, you ain't winning this, I'm winning this"?
So having read memories, ultimately, I think it's combination. I think he was a bit of a because he demanded excellence from himself. Also meant he was a bit arrogant. So he thought either I win or you're not going to win. And there were times where we talked about it, Coulthard, Villeneuve, where let's not sugarcoat it. He took out his opponents, knowing that bar when he got disqualified for championship. You probably worst case scenario, I get banned. It's fine. I believe for this race you are not going to win. Someone mentioned in the pod last week about and it might be new about Max not thinking about the next race. He's thinking about right here, right now. I need to win. And even if I damage my car, damage your car, ruin my championship, doesn't matter. And I think with him, yes, we talk about his dominance and so forth, but a lot of the things he did, I think early in his career, were probably a bit too reckless and a bit too hot-headed. Because was it Coulthard who mentioned in the documentary around, "Oh, do you ever think you're wrong?" He's like, no. Because to him, in his viewpoint, he's always right. Even if the crash was his fault, even if there wasn't a space, even if he was going too fast, in his mind, because of who he is, he was entitled to go for it. And to win that many championships, to be that dominant, you have to almost have a mental, I don't want to call it, but something a switch that flips, that you are a killer in that. We saw towards the latter parts of his career, I think once the cars started getting faster, technology improved, aerodynamics improved, and so forth, he did less of those things because I think the cars, like back in the late 90s, early 2000s, you could probably say it was pure driving talent, give or take, slash the fastest cars. As technology improved, you could have a faster car with a bad driver. Well, I won't say bad, not as good as a driver. So he struggled, but I think he toned down on that because he started realizing that, as Clifford said, he's getting older. He can't. Those decisions are. He's not thinking about them as quickly. So, honestly, I loved it as a neutral, not biased, but as a racing fan, I loved it because you need that shithousery. You need that somebody who is just going to make you think rightly or wrongly. As a competitor, what's he gonna do? As a fan, it just brings energy to the sport.
I feel as though he just had a will to win, and no matter what, he was going to win. And I think we saw that perfectly in Jerez, because when he crashed into Villeneuve, he went back to the pits and he told Ross Brawn, I wasn't at fault. And even Ross Brawn turned around and said, we showed him the video, and he kind of realised then that, yeah, maybe I was in the wrong here. So he just has this, like, maybe it's just a mental block, and he just thinks that, yeah, I'm right every time, I'm going to win.
I mean, look at it, in the documentary. His wife said when he was on breaks, most F1 drivers, they have breaks. They relax, they chill. He did go-karting, he did solo skydiving, he did basically anything that was extreme. So he's purely an adrenaline junkie. So I think he thrives on that.
Yeah.
All right, there's a gap. I may not make it, but he may make it. I think just that he just something switches and just forgets everything, just sees red, and that's it.
That's it. Kunle, talk to me about Schumacher and some of his crashes in 94, 97, 98. What did you make of them?
Are we talking about the master of the dark arts, yeah?
Yeah, just tell us, man. Just tell us.
It was epic shithouse. But you know what?
It was, wasn't it, bro?
It was shithouse. I don't know why JL's trying to like sugarcoat it. It was shithouse. He's just, you see JL, yeah. This is him wearing his Ferrari Googles, like, it's Ferrari, it's Schumi. Nothing Schumi and Ferrari done is wrong, even if they're crashing into other cars, I don't care as long as we're winning the championship. But I think again, it goes back to if you look at certain drivers and you look at who their idols are, you look at Schumi and his first sort of racing point. The first person you look at when you look at who Schumi sort of looks up to is Ayrton Senna. And Senna also had this moment where it's like, I'm gonna like take you out. I'm gonna win the championship. I don't finish the race. You don't finish the race. We're the only two there that will probably win the championship. So neither of us would finish the race, and I win the championship. So, it happened in 1994, the first time around, and in that documentary, he tried to like go about, oh yeah, I didn't know. I lost control. I was trying to go back on the track. But that man knew what he was doing.
He knew, bro.
He knew what he was doing, man. He's like, it's going to be a bit of a sticky one, I have to win this championship. Like, he needed to win 94. And then he went on. And then when he went on to win in 95, 95 was more straightforward. And that sort of solidified 94. So for all of the shit outstreet that he done, he always had that one season that backs it up to say, hey, look, I didn't just win because I crashed into that guy last year. I won because I was the better driver, or I'm better than everyone else. So when it happened again with the Villeneuve one, again, if you watch the documentary, he tried to, okay, this guy is faster than me. He's in a rocket. I can't stop him on the track. The only thing I can do is, give him a little squeeze.
Take him out, bro.
Yeah,
take him out. Simple, bro. But
then, the only mistake he made was that he went for a body shot instead of headshot, and the body shot didn't. It didn't work, and then he had to miss. The next year because of the suspension. And again, that happened because this was a second. There was already history of Michael doing that. He didn't take away from his greatness as a racing driver. It didn't take away from his abilities, but it just meant that, he's, again, like, Anik, you're a 90s baby. Like, you're old, right? You're old dead. So, like, me and Kwame come from a different era, right?
Don't give me that, Rob.
We come from a different era. So he was just, at that time, just saying, you know what? This is the era of racing where I come from. It's, you take it one way. You either take it fairly, or you little bro the person that you're taking it from. So
precisely.
Some people call it shithousery. Some people call it the dark arts. Some people call it genius. But it's just what
JL calls it winning.
No,
JL calls it winning because obviously it's JL and JL. Nah, yeah.
So what we saw towards the end of '97, obviously that race was quite key because Mika Hakkinen ended up winning that, and then going into '98, by which point it was Schumacher's third year at Ferrari, and then '99 his fourth year. The wait to deliver that first world title for Ferrari was growing. The anticipation was growing. The expectation for Ferrari was growing. And Schumacher actually ended up winning his first championship for Ferrari in 2000. And I just want to come to you first on this, Chris. For those of you that aren't aware, Schumacher missed the best part of the '99 season because he crashed out at Silverstone and he broke his leg. But in terms of ranking his first world championship with Ferrari in 2000, would you say that is one of his greatest achievements?
No, only because of the standards he set later on in terms of greatness. So
Okay.
stuff like 2002, where he finished every race on the podium, and 2004, like how many races, how many of the like having the championship wrapped up by Spa is a different level of greatness. While 2000 was something special, he just went on another level later on.
So I feel as though, so I agree with you to a point, but I feel as though post 2000 we saw a Schumacher dominance. So between 2000 and 2004, I feel as though we saw Schumacher dominance. I feel as though in the battle from especially 98 to 2000, I remember it so well because that's when I really started getting into Formula One. I feel as though it was the battle of trying to topple McLaren, and McLaren were very, very quick. I personally think in '99 Ferrari had a quicker car, and Eddie Irvine was just unable to get the best out of that car after Schumacher's unfortunate crash. But in 2000, I feel as though he had the car underneath him. He won the first, I think, 3 races in a bounce, and then he was able to deliver that championship. And I feel as though that's good because the only so when you look back on it, the only world champion for Ferrari is Kimi Räikkönen since Schumacher. Now, when you look back on it, I actually think, you know what? In 2000, that was amazing because it had been a bit of a drought for them, and then he had delivered it, and it seemed, emphatic at the time. I remember I was really, really happy because I was actually that year backing Schumacher to win. I want to come to you on this, Jay. I see you nodding your head. I see you agreeing with what I'm saying. But what did you make up of that? Like that silver West McLaren versus the scarlet red Ferrari and Schumacher.
You know what? It brought back so many memories of 2 things. My hatred, utter hatred for McLaren, that silver arrow. And you know why? Because Mika Hakkinen was so fast.
He was too good.
He was too good. So I think it was more slight jealousy because he was quick and he was a genuine, like, obviously 2-time world champion, but he was 3-time world champion, I think. But he was
two-time. In 2000, it would have been the 3rd time. He would have been, he would have been triple, yeah.
So I think he was just a genuine fast driver in a fast car. That's why I hated it. But I think 2000 was his greatest because at that time, 5th season at Ferrari, he was 2-time champion. Mika Hakkinen, had won his 2 titles in a row. And John Todt even said there were question marks around, did they back the right horse? It's similar to how Vettel ironically at Ferrari, you have a multiple world champion in the Ferrari team that you expect better from, and he wasn't delivering. So you could argue, had he not won the 2000 championship, there is no guarantee that he won 2001. No guarantee he would have stayed at Ferrari, and who knows what the legacy and the sport would have been. So, whilst I agree with Chris that there were more dominant championships in terms of sheer importance, that was the beginning of, I guess, obviously the Ferrari dominance, but just for him, he achieved what he wanted. It was quite simply come to Ferrari, come to the one of the 3 legacy teams in Formula One at the time, win it, and go down in history as a record breaker. and he did. So, and to beat, and also not only to win it, but to beat probably arguably the best / second best, depending on how you look at it, driver on the grid. Yeah, and for it to go down to the last race, now it definitely was, and I remember it because I would have been, by aging myself, old enough to remember it, and jumping for joy, the sheer utter joy, because we beat Mika Hakkinen.
It's funny you should mention Hakkinen, because I remember that 2000 year, and I was actually at the time really upset when Hakkinen made that pass on Schumacher at Spa, because if you remember, and the documentary takes us back, Hakkinen actually spoke with Schumacher after that pass, and he was upset with Schumacher because the first time, as they were coming up to a back marker down the Kemmel Straight, he completely blocked him off, and Hakkinen was upset about that. A couple of laps later, obviously Hakkinen manages to overtake him going on the inside of Ricciardo Zonta. Schumacher goes around the outside. But I do feel as though when you consider Michael Schumacher, you also, during that time, you definitely need to take your hat off to Mika Hakkinen. And I do feel as though that goes under the radar a lot. Maybe it's because of Twitter and F1 and the wider world now and how they consider drivers. But I feel as though Hakkinen needs to get a lot of praise, because he was an almighty quick driver. I really thought he was... Honestly, in 2000, I thought he was going to deliver the Triple Crown for them. So yeah, it was interesting.
Yeah, he's definitely... definitely a better driver than Kimi, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. And probably outside of recent champions, so Lewis, Michael, Alonso, I'd probably say he's probably the best probably of those three, personally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Personally, I can't. We could argue him and Vettel, but yeah, definitely up there.
So yeah, that was probably arguably, in my view, his most iconic moment for Ferrari. And then the way in which the documentary portrayed it was like, he's got this win for Ferrari, weight off his shoulders, and he was just able to go and deliver world championship after world championship after world championship, which I think was a bit of an exaggeration. Come the end of it in 2004, come the end of his first stint in Formula 1, 2004, he had 7 world championships, and he won back-to-back titles every year from 2000 right to 2004. Hey, come on this, because it's getting closer to your time now, 2004. What did you make of those world championships? Do you think it was just a case of having that weight off his shoulders, or do you just think the car was just too dominant?
I think it's a bit of both. I feel like as well, because I've gone to F1 right around like 05, 05, 04, so towards the end of this era. I feel like they kind of missed out the 2003, the battles that he had with the Williams, and he had with the Mclaren as well, and people like Kimi and Montoya. Yes, 02 and 04, like Chris said, were much more straightforward years. And them years that's where the Ferrari was just dominant. But I feel like, again, yes, stuff like 03, 01, they kind of missed out the battles he had with the Williams and McLaren, who were much more fast at the time. And I feel like as well, they didn't talk about his partnership with his teammate Rubens as well, who at the time obviously sacrificed a lot in the team, being the second fiddle, being the original Valtteri Bottas, who gets clowned nowadays. How he how he felt and how the structure of the team was built. I feel like that could have gone way more deal. I thought they should have done like another episode in the documentary, because much more was done, and even because his brother as well was at the time with Williams as well, and he was getting more second fiddle to Montoya, but he was still there competing. I feel like 2005 he wasn't 2004. Sorry, yes, he was in his stride. Yes, he had the faster car. Yes, everything kind of clicked for him and the team altogether. Everything was in his place. But again, if you look into the details more, there were some battles that should have been discussed, and you talk about how he fought them.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, you know what, I'm just going to get into the agendas right away, and I'm going to come to you first on this, Kunle. Like, is there an argument now, when you look back at Schumacher, look back at his legacy, is there an argument to say that every time he went toe-to-toe with the rival for a championship, he wasn't able to deliver? Because as far as I can remember, he's only ever gone up against Mika Hakkinen in 98, partially in 99. In 2000, okay, he toppled him. 05, 06, he wasn't able to get the better of Alonso. Obviously, that Renault car, you know, there could be an argument that that was a cheat code or whatever. But when it comes to battling another person for the championship, would you say that Schumacher has it in him to get over the line, or had it in him to get over the line?
First things first. If you have an agenda against Schumacher and championship credential, you're nasty. I'm just gonna say that.
Look, we're gonna get onto it.
That's the nastiest.
Look, we're gonna end up comparing him to Hamilton at some point, aren't we? Like, look, we've been recording for 40 minutes. Hamilton, we have to talk about Hamilton in the same breath. And if I'm gonna compare Schumacher and Hamilton, I have to look at how many times Schumacher and Hamilton have gone back toe to toe for a championship.
I personally wouldn't be doing that comparison just out of respect for the man's legacy, personally. But if you want to do that, you're nasty to start with. I mean, that's to start with. And secondly, you know, he has the man has 7 champions. He has 7 world championships. Whether you want to say it was against credible opponents or not, whether it was shit Austria or dark hearts, you cannot take 7 away from him. You can't put 7 asterisks on his names. All you can put next to the man's names is stars. And, you know, like I said earlier, for every year that there was some sort of battle or some sort of, you know, controversy around this championship, the next year he went out and he literally battered the opposition. You know, 2000, when he won in 2000, after that, you know, again, some people would argue that McLaren was faster than the Ferrari. Some would argue his first Ferrari championship, some would argue the McLaren was faster. But I have love for Mika, and Mika is, you know, I think is up there. It's not Mount Rushmore F1, just because other people have better numbers than he does, but I think he's up there as one of the greats of the sport. So
Ferrari won the Constructors in 99, yeah? Hakkinen won the World Championship.
Yeah.
And that's one of the few times that a driver has been able to win the World Championship and not have the fastest car. So you have to give your hat off to him there.
Who was the second driver?
I think the second time was in 2007.
Who was the second time? Who was the second driver at McLaren?
What, during that time? David Coulthard.
Who was the second driver at Ferrari?
Eddie Irvine.
Are you telling me Coulthard is a better driver than Irvine?
No. I'm not saying that. Okay.
I mean,
but that backs it up even more. That shows you just how dominant the Ferrari was in 99, because the Ferrari was able to win the Constructors in 99.
No, also if you switch around Coulthard and Irvine, the Ferrari still win the Constructors?
Probably, yeah.
I don't think so. Do you think that? Yeah. Do you think so, JL?
99, that Ferrari car was dominant. Everyone goes on about Schumacher's Malaysia, you know, fantastic comeback and whatever. But, you know, let's just keep our feet on the ground here. That car was very quick.
But Mika's McLaren wasn't a go-karting car either. It wasn't
quick enough.
It was quick, exactly. You know, it was quick enough to compete. So, but that's aside. You know, I'll leave that argument to you old heads to discuss. Because
no, this is why we brought you into the conversation, Kunle. You're very much.
Me and Kwame only, like, you know, we enjoy the sport when we have LED TVs and TVs and full HD TVs. Not, you know, not
Kunle, you're very much part of this conversation. We all know you watched ITV.
We're not talking
Jim Rosenthal.
You know, we're talking BBC One and Sky days. You know, that's what we're trying to talk about. But yeah, like back to Shim. Like I feel like he has enough to say that he had been able to go up against some of the best drivers and come up on top. You know, the dominance ended when Alonso came in, but that's just the cycle, right? You're not king forever. You know, he came up as a young pup, and from the documentary, it's like he was this kid. So he went from being a supplement driver to just, you know, someone's been arrested, we need a driver, to getting signed to help the Benetton team that was like third or fourth fastest become the best race car on the grid.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, if you're not champion material, you're not.
You don't
that
win the
much.
championship.
You
Yeah.
don't do that. You know, you don't win the championship. You know, and it proved that as well. It proved, you know, who wraps up the championship at Spa?
Schumacher
Like,
does.
Only like
in a very dominant car though, Kunle. I'm sorry, you have to remember that it was extremely.
in a very dominant car. Fair enough, but
Bro, he was getting team orders at Austria, which is like the 5th race of the season. He's getting team orders.
That's why. He Lil brought everyone else. Then he just came in and said, you know, this is my team now. I've been through the mud with this team, and now it's my time to eat, and no one's gonna take my food from my table. And that's what it was. Like, you know, I'm eating now, and I'm eating good. So, you know,
I'm gonna continue to eat.
I'm gonna stay eating. Whoever is the second driver, who was the second driver at the time?
Barrichello.
Barrichello.
Barrichello. You know, Barrichello came in. Hey, my G, you go hold tight. You know, just chill, right? Chill for me. I'm still eating. When I'm done eating, you can get scraps. And Barrichello did get scraps. You know,
No, to be fair, yeah, you got the America that year for free.
He got the American 2005. Are you talking about the 2005 Grand Prix, the one that he won by default? Yeah.
Not the 2005. It was the Austria.
Oh.
The same year they did Austria. He swapped it back in America as like, you know. Here you go.
Oh, did he?
I took that one.
Yeah, he gave him one too. He gave him one.
Yeah. Hold on. Do you remember what happened in 2010 in Hungary? Yeah, after all the work that Barrichello done for him, Schumacher tried to completely take him out. Yeah, do you remember that? When Barrichello was driving for Williams, yeah. Oh yeah, really respectful that was.
Are you still holding on to that?
What, dude? He helped him win so many world championships. He literally tried to take him up. Watch that, Kunle. After this pod, go and watch that back. Hungary 2010.
Bro,
he literally tried.
He was fine.
Barrichello came on the radio and was like, black flag him for that.
Jill, I can't believe you're here listening to Anik trying to question Schumacher's championship.
No, I'm not. It's just, guys, look, the ultimate question will come up that, you know, if in some way Hamilton does not win number 8, there will be questions to say who is the greatest of all time. And right now, with Hamilton having 7, Schumacher having 7, we have to consider and look at that debate. In my view, it's easily Lewis Hamilton, but people will have that debate.
But let me throw.
So I just wanted.
But let me throw a spanner in the work, right? Not that I side either way, right? Lewis has driven against. When he retires, how many drivers will we say are legacy drivers? Alonso?
Mm-hmm.
Vettel?
I'll say Alonso, Vettel.
Maybe
Raikkonen.
Maybe Raikkonen.
Maybe Button.
Honestly, when we talk about Michael, he drove against Hill, Prost,
Mansell,
Senna, Hill, so one can argue, yes, the Ferrari may be more dominant, but the field of drivers that Michael Schumacher drove against was better, I believe, as the top tier talent. Now
there were more world champions. He drove against more world champions than probably anyone else.
So the argument is, in terms of pure. So you look at it, you can't look at pure because you're comparing eras, right? But if let's say Lewis gets 8, then yeah, you would say by pure numbers, Lewis has what his legacy is greater. But then the argument will always be, it's similar to like how we talk about football, right? We talk about Cristiano Ronaldo's international scoring records, 100 and whatever goals, but 50 of those goals came against farmers. Is it really a great record?
Well, for Hamilton it is, because I can completely rebuttal that point, JL. You told me he raced against Senna, Prost, Hill. For all of that, he only has 2 world championships to show. Hamilton has 5, okay, during his time at Mercedes, right? No, sorry, 6 during his time at Mercedes, and he is driven against other world champions on the grid in Raikkonen, in Rosberg, in Vettel, in Button. So that's minimum 4 world champions there that he's faced against, and he's beaten them all.
What 3 of those guys? But 3 of those guys in 10 years' time won't be talked about. Simple as that.
The world champion, what? A 4-time world champion, a double world champion.
Yeah. No.
Rosberg is still talking right now.
No, but in let's say I talk about legacy, right? Right now we still talk about Hill, Prost, Mansell, and so forth, right? They're not going to talk. They talk about Vettel because he's won 4 titles. Listen, Rosberg, maybe not. Alonso, definitely, but that's about it. Vettel and Alonso. The rest will just be.
I think JL. I think JL. Like Jensen Button is his world championship is a streets will never forget. World
No, of course not. Of course not.
Streets will never forget. And Rosberg also put himself in that category for dipping out when he dipped out. So it's always going to be that guy dipped out when he won the championship. So for some, he dipped out. It's what it is. He dipped out. Don't look at me like that.
Anyway, to me,
No. I've got one question.
Go for it, Chris.
Okay. You see Rosberg, yeah? You see all the dark arts? He learned that from Michael. So Michael's dark arts pammed Lewis. That's what happened here. The dark arts got to Lewis.
Lewis never pulls out these tricks, by the way.
But then you guys know. But then the thing is, you see the dark arts thing, yeah. You see Vettel tried it in Baku that year. You might remember that.
2017 when he tried to go. Yeah.
He tried to do that sneaky little thing on the side, on the side, and then So like again, Shumi is a legacy driver. Maybe the Gen Z kids don't know much about his legacy because they didn't see it happen. Most of them saw the Mercedes years of Schumacher. Most of them didn't see him. They didn't see the Schumacher that was walking. It was a walking god on the grid.
But even in Mercedes, though, there were still glimpses though of like.
Yeah, there was glimpses. He had that qualifying in was it Monaco?
Yeah.
Yeah, that qualifying in Monaco. Yeah, Monaco.
Where it was meant to be on pole, but then he got like a grid penalty, and then he started from somewhere. Yeah, that's. But yeah, I feel like for a lot of the new school drivers, and it's very weird because the new school drivers don't really. They're not the era of drivers that looked up to Schumacher's era of driving, right? Mm-hmm. So like this new school drivers looked at. They probably watched Formula One around the years of Vettel, Alonso, Webber, Hamilton, and Button. Those were probably the drivers that they watched. Maybe the older guys, like the guys in their 30s, probably saw a lot of Schumacher. So like the Hamiltons saw a lot of Schumacher. Vettel, obviously being German, looked up to Schumacher. Daniel Ricciardo probably watched Schumacher. But then the newer ones don't. So maybe that's why his legacy would sort of, if it's not continuously spoken about or discussed, maybe that's when he might start getting questioned. Because like again, you're only as great as people talk about you, right? Mm-hmm. And for many kids these days, and for many people, for many younger audience of F1, and this is nothing against the older audience. The younger audience would only go by highlights, and they probably say, "Oh, it was in a faster car." They won't see. Maybe the documentary would help them see what like he had to drive against.
Okay.
The younger audience don't remember. They don't know Senna versus Prost. They don't know how great Mansell was. They probably don't even know how good Jensen Button was in the wet. All they know is Verstappen versus Leclerc, which disgusts me, by the way. But that's by the way.
Hey.
Oh, we're in the mud.
Nah, boy, we do. Hey.
No, mate, we're
not in the mud.
Chris said we're in the mud.
Scamming on so much.
Right. No, future F1's bright, man. Come on, future
No, it is.
F1's bright.
You know what? I think compared to as you know, kids talking about most of the kids. So the current grid of drivers, what they're 98, 2000 babies, right? So they would have been when they were of an age, maybe taking the sport. It would, as you said, it would have been Alonso, and it would be Lewis, and so that future generation is looking at Lewis Hamilton, and we older ones the same way that if you ask Gary Lineker, like best of footballer, he will say Maradona because to him that was who was the pinnacle at his time. But he respects that Messi's ability, same way that for me, and maybe Anik, we would say Michael is here because of what we remember, but we will put Lewis in the same category, just differently. In 10 years' time, you know, unfortunately, you have some fans who may say Max sickening, or they may say
Very sickening.
Lando or whatever. But I think we have the current grid. I think probably has the best spread of talent. I would probably say for quite some time, because you could probably put 4 or 5 drivers in. I say you could put 4 or 5 drivers in Lewis's car, and each of them you could argue could win a championship. You couldn't say that back in the early 2000s. If you say, okay, I'm gonna put, I don't know, whoever it was in that Ferrari car of Michael, they may not win the championship.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I do agree that the future F1's bright. Will we see the sort of dominance that we saw from Ferrari and probably Mercedes right now? No. It remains to be seen. 2022 is around the corner. So yeah, look, we'll see what happens there. Chris, I know you have a lot of time for not just Michael Schumacher, but Mick Schumacher as well. Towards the end of the documentary, it was quite touching to see some of the comments he made. It must be really tough for him, innit? Like growing up, especially now. Especially, you know, we've just spoken about him, you know, for almost an hour. The way, you know, he's regarded in the Formula One world. What's your thoughts on Mick Schumacher, mate?
He's the nicest kid you could meet. Like, it pays real testament to Michael, the fact that he's so good. And yeah, he's just hearing him talk about how he give up everything to speak with his dad about being in Formula One is just testament to, you know, the relationship they had, how good of a child he is, and just like he's a good racer. He's clearly shown his skills coming in one, so I wish him the best, and you know, hopefully he can win in a Ferrari one day.
Yeah, I think that would be perfect. That would be like literally coming full circle for the Schumacher,
Chris,
Schumacher and their family, definitely.
Chris, is that why you like set up Nick Hive? Yeah, because he's a good kid.
Hashtag
Yeah.
Mick Hive.
He's a good kid. He's a good kid from a good home.
Like junior category.
You sure that's
single
why?
Junior category. That's your CV submitted.
Or is it because he's a good youth from a good home? Yeah.
When you win every category, like Leclerc, like Russell, you get back in. You get back in. He showed levels. He won the championships with a serious name.
I might pick up a form very soon. You know, the documentary convinced me. No, we love good kids from good homes. Yeah, we love them.
Oh man, I personally think when it comes to Mick, I think he's got a huge expectation on his shoulders. Personally, I really hope he delivers. You know, I think just as you mentioned, Chris, he's there on merit. You know, he's won all of those junior categories, but he will always have that, you know, in the back of his head that you know, my dad, you know, will be considered one of the greatest ever. Kwame, let me quickly come to you on Mick before we wrap up. What's your thoughts on Mick? Not only in the documentary, but as a driver, especially this season as well.
I think Mick, with the documentary, one thing I'm about to say is it shows how mentally strong he is. as a person, especially as well because I think it was touched on the documentary, but he was actually there with his dad when the whole skiing incident happened as well. He's only 14 at the time, so for you to see your dad go through a traumatic experience that has affected, his life, and the way the family talking about him is, I feel like it's the closest we'll ever get because the family are very private about the situation. But it seemed like he's in a very, very deep place, like a very bad place in the sense that the way some of them talk about, like the mom was talking about in past tense and whatnot, and they were saying that we're very protective of Michael and we'll look after him, and it showed that it's definitely had a toll on Mick, but I think he's used that to his advantage in the sense that he's definitely had down the chip on his shoulders, made him, push, to the next level. I feel like Mick as a driver, I feel like personally from, like Chris said, with his junior category, he's done very, very well. Seems like a driver is very calculated in the sense that he's done very well in the second years, and he's a very consistent driver as well during the lower formulas. So I feel like for his age, it's similar to his dad, because his dad was very mature, and at the beginning of the documentary during the karting and he was getting interviewed, his dad had a very short head on him, and even Mick's seen like that now as well. So I feel like Mick knows what else to do. He's got the backing of the Ferrari guys. I feel like the ceiling is the sky's limit for him, to be honest with you. He just needs, a seat, be up from Sands or Leclerc or whatever. But yeah, I think he can.
He ain't taking the Leclerc seat, no way.
He's got the potential to go there, but it's just
he's be Leclerc and Mick all the way.
But yeah, I mean,
imagine that driver lineup. Any final words, guys, before we wrap up?
I'll just say that the documentary was good. I wish it was more of a limited series, so maybe 2 parts, because for those who don't know about Michael, so in general, it was good to know about his life, his early days, where he came up, to show that, he didn't just come into the sport, win from day one, it was easy peasy. No, he actually had to try. The only piece which I wish they delved more into, as you said, it was what, 90 minutes, give or take. So it was 70 odd minutes up until his first title,
first world championship. Yeah, for Ferrari.
And that's the piece which actually I think cements his legacy more, because it's the dominance. So if you're a casual Formula One fan, which a lot more people are, they don't really understand some of the real black arts that he really did. He and Ferrari really did. So I would have liked to have seen a part 2 of that. However, no, I echo the guys. I think Mick hopefully will have a good career, leave Haas, go to like AlphaTauri, Aston Martin, a nice midfield team, show his talents. Would I want to see him in Ferrari one day? A part of me says yes, but a part of me is like that pressure with the Schumacher name is a lot, and we'll see if he can do it. I haven't, it's still early in his career, but it was good to finally see something from the Schumacher family, and just hope that some positive news from him comes out soon enough.
Yep, no, perfect little summary there, Joe. I fully agree with you. They probably should have split it up over a couple of episodes, but it was really nice from Netflix. It was a great way to sum up the 2-week break that we have between races, and obviously an excellent throwback to Schumacher. As a disclaimer, I'm not playing down any of Schumacher's achievements. He, for me, is definitely up there as one of the greatest.
Oh, you're copying, please, now, yeah?
But there is one driver that is ahead of him, and that's not bad in any way, shape or form. That one driver is my GOAT, and that's Lewis Hamilton. But whatever Schumacher's achievements were, and however much you rate them, it was an excellent throwback and an excellent documentary, and we thoroughly enjoyed it. Until next time, where we will be reviewing the Russian Grand Prix. Peace from everyone at Pitstop Fracas. Enjoy yourself and take care.